Hear, O Yashar'Al, the great I am, the great spirit, is the only power for you. The great I am, the great spirit is one. Speak peace on this day of rest. Rise, O Yashar'Al. Welcome to World War III. Our reference today will be 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 20. And this message will be entitled Racism. That's right, racism. We're going to tackle it from the Indigenous Hebrew Israelite awakening perspective. Now, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution state that the Congress shall have the powers to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states with the Indian tribes. White House Tribal Nations Conference of December 15, 2010 was in recognition of indigenous peoples such as Indian tribes. President Barrack Hussein Obama delivered the acceptance speech. Now let's go back in history a little bit. Virginia Code 1887, subsections 49 and subsections 67 of 1910 on page 581. It defines colored persons and Indians define, which is that 1/16th of blood. Every person having 1/16th or more of Negro blood shall be deemed a colored person, and every person not a colored person having 1/4 or more of Indian blood shall be deemed an Indian, which is an act to amend and reenact the 9th section of Chapter 103 of the Code of Virginia, 1866, February 27. The General Assembly provided a legal definition of the word mulatto and outlines criminal punishments for African Americans. One more time, a legal definition for the word mulatto and outlines criminal punishments for African Americans. That's what this law has done. That's what this Virginia Code has done. A little later in 1967, Richard Perry Loving and Mildred Jeter Loving versus Virginia, 388 U.S. 1, established or actually overruled this Virginia Code. Again, you got to thank them for being a white husband and a black wife coming together and saying that Virginia Code is meaningless. A Virginia Code which is used as what's the saying? It's used as case law. Case law means they're going to use a case across all the 50 states and territories saying, hey, you know, this is what black and Indians ought to be defined as legally. Now let's go to my state. An unratified California Treaty K, also known as the Treaty of Temecula, lovely city by the way. One of 18 unratified treaties in California whose flag yields a Moorish star and the California grizzly bear. Both captured to this day by unratified racist treaty. And again, here's a religious connotation of U.S. relations with California Indians. A person by the name of Helen Hunt Jackson wrote in 1884, quote, I sometimes wonder that the Lord does not rain fire and brimstone on this land to punish us for our cruelty to these unfortunate Indians, unquote. Here's the political connotation of U.S. relations with California Indians. Quote, I know of no people who have more rightly claim upon justice and liberty of the American people. All or nearly so of the fertile valleys were seized. The mountain gulches and the ravines were filled with miners, and without the slightest recognition of Indian rights, they were dispossessed of their homes, their hunting grounds, their fisheries, and to a great extent of the production of the earth. With no one of the many tribes of the states is there an existing treaty, despoiled by irresistible force of the lands of their fathers, with no country on earth to which they can migrate, in the midst of a people with whom they cannot assimilate. They have no recognized claim upon the federal government and are almost compelled to become vagabonds, to steal or to starve. In our refusal to recognize their usufructuary, I don't know what that word means, usufructuary right in the soil, or occupancy right, and treaty with them for its relinquishment, thereby providing for them the means of substance until such time as they shall be educated to conform or the widely altered circumstances by which they are surrounded. That is the commissioner, unquote. That is the commissioner of Indian Affairs, William P. Dole, in 1862, who quoted Oscar Lipps, Lipps, the case of the California Indians. And here's another case to consider. Worcester versus Georgia, 31 U.S. CPET, was a writ of error. Worcester's conviction, and Worcester was a minister who was trying to convert the Indians of Georgia, or the Indians of the West Coast for that matter, or the East Coast for that matter, trying to convert them to Christianity. Remember that slave Bible that they chopped up. Remember that. So this Worcester is trying to convert the Indians of the East Coast, basically in Georgia, to Christianity. And the court found the conviction void because the states have no criminal jurisdiction in Indian country. This is in Georgia, folks. Tribal or indigenous law of the land, which is self-governance, law of the land is self-governance, was upheld. Here's another case, Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. Again, 30 U.S. 5 PET in 1831. The first case was 1832, Worcester versus Georgia. This is Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, 1831. The Indians pursue the case as foreign domestic nationals. They pursued their case as foreigners, but domestic nationals. The Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, also known as FSIA, the 94th United States Congress, January 19, 1977. Public Law 94-583, Statute at Large 90-2891, and codified as 28 subsection 1330 subsection 1391. Again, this is codified. This is a public law, and this is Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act. It's in the books. A foreign state, and it's defining a foreign state, is defined as in 28 U.S. subsection 1603 alpha. A foreign state is defined as a commercial activity. So, and it's separate from the United States. And again, here's another case which happened in 2004, I believe. The Republic of Austria et al. Versus Altman. Now, this is a country being put on trial by a Jewish woman And it said that the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, the FSIA, which was put in law in 1977, applies retroactively because this Jewish woman had property, paintings of such, pictures of such, that she wanted from the Nazis. And this is an American law that's demanding of the Austrian government, Republic of Austria, to return these paintings that the Nazi government stole from her ancestors. Remember these cases, folks. Now, two things to consider. Title 18. One, Title 18 USC of the United States Code deals with criminal laws where they put you black peoples under. Posse Comitatus Act, against sovereign citizens, sort of say. People who, the gunslingers of the West, who said, okay, I don't like you, you don't like me, let's take 10 steps and then draw and kill each other. That was Posse Comitatus Act. And they are using the Army and the Air Force to enforce this Posse Comitatus Act. The second thing to consider, and again, before I go on, this sovereign citizen does not exist legally or functionally. A sovereign citizen, you can't be a sovereign and then a citizen, which is defined as somebody who has a representative over them, or have a lawyer or somebody that is representing them. You're not a sovereign if you have somebody representing you or on behalf of you. So you can't be a sovereign citizen if somebody is representing you. So it's not a legal term. Whereas these guys, the Anti-Defamation League, are the ones who identified or coined the term sovereign citizen. It does not exist legally. Let's move on. The second thing titles to consider. Title 25 USC of the United States Code. It deals with internation law between the United States and its tribal members that are inside, whether you are identified tribal member or unidentified or unrecognized, recognized tribes and unrecognized tribes in the United States. That's what Title 25 USC Code pertains to. So you can either put your life under Title 18 and follow, the obedience of those who are representing you, or you can go under Title 25 USC and perform under your own tribal identity. Now here we go. Civil Rights Act of 1964. The civil rights, which is personal rights, and labor laws, which is contract slavery or service or, labor again. This was implied in 1964. My forebears, Martin Luther King, people like Martin Luther King, people like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, people like my forebears lived and died for these civil rights, which can be taken and which can be given and taken by the United States. And an example of that is Executive Order 13769, which is Trump's travel ban on Muslims. See, now the Civil Rights Act gave you Title 7, which is freedom of religion, race, creed, All of them, all of those human rights that belong to you naturally, that were given to you by your ancestors, that was given to you by your God. You know, this executive order, Trump's travel ban on Muslims, is a bold-faced, racist, and just against religious nature of original or indigenous people, of just people in general. You know, and it pains me. And again, that there's Executive Order 13769 and Executive Order 13780, which probably lowered the numbers on the ban or something like that. But it's federally registered, or the document number is 2017-04837. The document citation is 82 FR 13209. Again, they have legalized this racism. They have legalized it under this current administration, number 45. And they're telling you that the man is not racist. They're telling you that his actions are not racist. They're telling you that the man is a businessman who he has no military history or no government history, but he is a businessman operating as a businessman. And it pains me to see African Americans or any person in color protecting this guy who got his wealth through a system of Jim Crow, who got his wealth through a system whose foundation is based on slavery. And for any person of color to say this man is not racist in the acts that he is doing, it just makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to the people who are Islamic or Muslim, and it makes no sense to the people who are of color, of which this executive order goes directly against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The last thing that I want to say is what is defined as a nation. In Webster's Dictionary, 1828, a nation, as its etymology imports, originally denotes a family or race of men descendant from a common progenitor, like a tribe. But by immigration, conquest, and intermixture of men of different families, this distinction is in most countries lost. Unquote. Now that is the definition of Webster's Dictionary, 1828, of a nation. That means that people of color, as defined, black, Indians, or whatever, are destroyed by somebody defining what your race is based upon 1/16th rule, or based upon the one drop rule that they telling you. You know, you should not have a country, a government country, which is a government company, telling you what your race is. You should not have that. You should have your own ancestors telling you what your race is. If you have 1/16th of blood in you, and even if you have blue eyes, they are calling you a Negro. Think about that. I am your conscientious objector. I am also a Hebrew Israelite, wishing that my people would wake up from the damages of constant Jim Crow, from the damages of racism, and from the current captivity that this nation has you under, unaware to you. I'm your Hebrew Israelite. Hebrew Israelite out.